What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to be doing some cool tips and tricks with some interesting cards and locations that you might see sometimes or that you might play with on a normal basis. I know Invisible Woman is kind of making her rounds right now in terms of some of the decks like Discard or Shuri decks. And I wanted to give you guys some really interesting, cool pointers that you guys can do with these cards and location. One of them is going to be the Dark Dimension location. This location itself is actually pretty insane when you think about some of the things that it can do. A lot of people don't understand fully the capability of how to abuse this location. They just think that, you hide a card for the end of the game, but there's a little bit more to that. You can actually use Dark Dimension and Invisible Girl because they are somewhat of the same ability to your benefit. So with that being said, before we go into the details, I have noticed that a lot of my subscribers are not actually the biggest percentage of my views. For those that aren't subscribed, it would be so much help and so much appreciation if you guys could hit that like and subscribe button. It helped me out. I definitely have been posting and making a lot of helpful tip videos and gameplay videos and deck builds in this channel. So if you guys can, please do me a favor and do those for me. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into these scenarios. Okay, so in the first one, basically what I'm going to discuss here is it's a pretty interesting concept to do. Dark Dimension actually doesn't reveal things until the game has actually ended. This could be to your benefit. Now, there are certain things that you can do with cards like for instance, Mystique, Taskmaster, Absorbing Man, and me as a player, I have reached infinite rank, and I use these tricks actually on quite a consistent basis. So that kind of helps me in terms of when I play my games. If I want to fool my opponent, if I see a card, if I see the ability to play Dark Dimensions with a deck like Patriot decks, Shuri decks, Discard decks, Devil Dino decks, this can help you in almost any way, shape, or form as long as you have these abilities that copy other abilities. For instance, you can play something like Mystique on a turn 3 or a turn 4. Say, for instance, you don't have that card that you need in your hand, but you know that that's probably going to be the best time to play that card in hopes that by the end of the game, for instance, you can pull a Patriot or something else. It'll give you time to build your field and to do things that you want to do, and they will still never truly understand what card you played on turn 3. They will think it is a Patriot, and for the most part, it can be. So they won't play something like a Cosmo because that won't counter a Cosmo. But when you start playing things like Blue Marvel or other things, and then on that last turn you play, say, basically Patriot on that last turn, the Mystique will proc that card even though you played it on turn 3. Another scenario is really helpful is that you can play a Mystique on turn 3 in a Dino deck, and then you can Moon Girl on turn 4, and then you'll have 2 Devil Dinosaurs, say for instance, best case scenario, in your hand. Turn 5 you play a Devil Dino, and turn 6 you play a Devil Dino. Now, you still, for instance, maybe had that Invisible Girl, or you had that Dark Dimension on your field, and you played that Mystique on that turn 3. Although you played other cards ahead of time, it revolves around the last card you played. So when you activate the last Devil Dino, you're going to have not 1, not 2, but 3 Devil Dinos in and on the field because of Mystique copying one of them, giving you sometimes just so much absurd amount of power. Another cool scenario that you can do is with Taskmaster. For instance, you can play Taskmaster on turn 5 into Dark Dimension, and it will actually hide the ability of what you're trying to do. Some people will think it's probably going to be a Red Skull, but for instance, on a turn 4, you can play Shuri. Turn 5 into a Dark Dimension or an Invisible Girl, you can play Taskmaster. Once you have done that, you have not actually activated Shuri's ability. So there's a lot of these really cool things because those cards technically have not been played, and they don't count as the first or next card that you play after, say, Shuri, or cards that you do give buffs to. So say you do Shuri turn 4, and then you play, you know, Taskmaster behind, you know, the Dark Dimensions, and then you can play something like Red Skull turn 6, and then they will think, well, I'm looking for that Cosmo play. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to Shang-Chi something, and they don't realize that you didn't and weren't able to do, you know, they weren't able to do what they wanted to do. So it's really interesting, and it's really cool, some of the great things that you can do with these combos, because the Taskmaster would essentially proc the, you know, Red Skull on turn 6, and even though the game is over, there's some other interesting things that you can do with Dark Dimensions. For instance, you can play Ebony Maw, you can play Atuma, and believe it or not, this actually is one of the best things for the card Atuma. You can play Atuma on Dark Dimensions, and it will not destroy the card. And the reason that is because Dark Dimensions happens after turn 6 has ended, meaning his ability reads that, you know, as after this turn, if there's another card here, destroy this card. Technically the turn ended, and he then reveals itself. So he's kind of like in somewhat of a limbo kind of, you know, state where the game has ended and he's there. It's almost like a Dracula. He's just kind of there, and that's just it. There's no other turn. The turn ended before he was played, and that helps. So there's some really interesting things that you can also do. For instance, you can play on turn 4 a Absorbing Man, and then you can play turn 5, you can play a Red Skull, then you can play a Taskmaster, and then you know, they're gonna obviously try to Shang-Chi you in one of those lanes, but they'll never guess that you had a card that could copy the Taskmaster, like Absorbing Man, behind Dark Dimensions or behind Invisible Girl, thus giving you another 15 power on the board. So these are some cool tips and tricks that I personally love to do with Invisible Girl and with you know, Dark Dimensions. Whenever I see them, I always try to play them to my abilities. It's definitely a way to fool your opponent or keep your opponent second guessing, because you know, they know the deck you're going to run. Sometimes you can switch it up on them and completely throw them off guard. Go ahead in the comments, experiment with this stuff. You know, if there's something that maybe, you know, you want to add to this, go ahead and add it in the comments. But I'm just really passionate about this. I think it's really cool. You know, if you guys want to try some other cool combos, go ahead and experiment. Leave it down in the comments of the things that you've gone and pulled off. Maybe you want to come back to the video and just tell me how it went. I'd be super open to discussing that with you and discussing more ideas. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get going. This video definitely has been a lot of fun for me to make. I've been really excited about making stuff like this. It's not definitely one of my best edited videos, but I just wanted to showcase some really cool things and scenarios that you guys can do with certain locations. I love to explore the game to its fullest capabilities. And yeah, thank you guys again, and don't forget to follow and subscribe. Peace.